Welcome to Church at Home for Wednesday, the 21st of December. My name is Rachael Parker. I am an Anglican priest. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the rector or the priest for Dayspring Ministries, which is a collaboration of three congregations, St. Mary's Edgerton, St. Saviour's in Vermilion, and St. Thomas in Wainwright, in the Diocese of Edmonton, the Anglican Church of Canada, and we are located in the beautiful province of Alberta. So welcome, all of you who gather with me today. Today is a tough day. Last week I mentioned I did a video on when Christmas sucks, because sometimes it does. But this one is more a blue Christmas, or when Christmas hurts, when Christmas is sad. This is also known as the longest night, the darkest night. The 21st of December is the shortest day of the year, hence the longest day of the longest night of the year. And for many, many people, it can be a very difficult time, especially because of the season. And I'd like to talk about that right now. I mentioned, as I said last week, I talked about when Christmas sucks, and for some people, it just is not a great time of year. People don't like it for various reasons, but there are many people who really love Christmas, and yet Christmas is just a really difficult season sometimes. If you've lost a job, if your home or your sense of having a home is tenuous, this can be, especially this day, can be so very difficult. If you're the kind of person who needs sunlight, who needs a sense of being able to look around and see things happening, this can be a really, really hard day. And quite often in the church, we will have services called things like a Blue Christmas service, or a service for when Christmas hurts, recognizing that many, many people want to celebrate Christmas and enjoy it, have, Santa Claus and the gifts and the family and the food and the raucousness and family games and things like that. But they need that time, a permission to take a little bit of time aside and just acknowledge how they're really feeling. And so in seasons gone by, I've done a Blue Christmas service in some of my churches, and it's not usually well attended, but it's well attended. So what I mean by that is it may not have numbers, it may not have, dozens and dozens of people come out on the shortest, coldest night of the year to come out and worship. But the people who do come out of a sense of peace, or the needing of peace. We light candles. We acknowledge how difficult this day, this season can be. Quite often, the people that I would invite are often the family members of people that I have buried during the year since last Christmas. People who are celebrating or looking to this Christmas as the first one without a spouse or a child or a parent, a friend. It doesn't mean that Christmas is necessarily going to be bad. It doesn't mean that wonderful, great things aren't going to happen. But it gives people permission to recognize that maybe not everything about this Christmas season is the way they would want it to be. I understand that because I've had different seasons, different Christmases when Christmas, I looked forward to it. The joy and the peace of Christmas wasn't missing, but there were aspects of life around me that gave me need to take moments to pause and to be honest with myself. The year that I was 16 years old, my grandmother was in the hospital and she was dying. She had a form of bone cancer, and it didn't look good. And I believe her grandmother also died on Christmas Day. So we were kind of anticipating something happening. And I remember everybody went off to the hospital and we had a turkey. We were going to have a big family. We were going to have a turkey for Christmas dinner. And so my mom left me at the farm babysitting my sisters and my cousins. And I was to take care of the turkey. So I was to baste the turkey. Well, that was the most well-basted turkey. I must have gone through 2 pounds of butter. I hauled that thing. It was massive. It was like a giant turkey. We had a lot of people to feed. And I hauled that thing out of the oven like every half hour and just covered it in butter. Oh, it smelled so good. Later in the day, later in the evening, one of my other cousins came and relieved me of my duties, and somebody picked me up. I took me in the hospital, and I was able to be there with most of my family when my grandmother died. But when we got home, everybody realized they'd been at the hospital all day. Everybody was tired and hungry. Somebody stopped at Pizza Delight in Hanover and picked up boxes of pizzas. That's the only thing was open on Christmas Day. There was probably a Chinese food place open, but the Pizza Delight was open in Hanover, Ontario. So a whole bunch of boxes of pizza came home and they got put on the kitchen table. Big old farm kitchen. There was a couch in the kitchen, a big chair beside the wood stove, and that electric oven, or that oven, was going fine with that turkey basting away in there. But the pizzas all came out. I remember I was sitting on the floor. My grandfather was sitting in his chair, and I was sitting on the floor at his right knee. My cousin Judy was at his left knee, and he was just touching our heads, just smoothing our hair. We were so upset. We were so scared and so lonely. Grandma had died. No one thinking what this must be like for my grandfather, married for 56, 57 years to his best friend. 7 children together, plus however many they lost. 18 grandchildren, and by then they had at least a few great-grandchildren. It was a beautiful family, and it was a beautiful night in a very painful way. One of the things I remember, though, is that my Uncle Don realized how much work I had put into that turkey, and he said it would be a waste. So he pulled out the turkey and he carved it, and he sat there. Instead of eating pizza, he ate a pile of turkey and told me it was the best turkey he'd ever eaten. I have no idea if it really was, but for me, he gave me a gift. He gave me a gift on a night that was so very difficult, so very, very hard. And so that Christmas Day in 1987 isn't lost to me, because it is balanced. The love of family and the presence and my uncle's gift of eating that turkey that I worked so hard on, and my grandfather just patting our heads, just letting us know we were there, and he was strong for us when really we should have been strong for him. That's a memory I carry with me, and every Christmas Day I take a few minutes to remember that, and to remember my grandmother, and remember those Christmases then, because it seemed like every year our whole family would go up for Christmas to the farm, and that was the last Christmas at the farm. That never happened again. My grandfather died 9 months and 2 days later. I really do believe he just couldn't live without my grandmother. And so that was the last Christmas, when Christmas was as Christmas had always been. Another Christmas that was hard, beautiful, but hard, and I would have appreciated something like this myself, was the Christmas of 2013, and my husband Rob was sailing. He was deployed to the Middle East, and he was somewhere in the Indian Ocean, and he wasn't there. And the families for the Military Family Resource Center in Halifax, we were the families of the HMCS Toronto, and we get together fairly regularly. And what we did was we had a Christmas market, because all of these kids from the deployment had a mom or a dad, mostly dads, who were deployed, and they weren't able, their moms or dads who were with them were actually, basically single parents for the time being. It was difficult. How do you go and buy something for your parent for Christmas when your parent's the one who was to take you shopping? So we all chipped in, and we bought these, just basic gifts, $10, $15 gifts. And we filled up one of the rooms like a market at the MFRC. And a couple of us who were single and didn't have kids, or not, weren't single, but we didn't have kids, volunteered to man the market, so to speak. So the kids would come in, and every child would get a ticket. And they would come in, and with that ticket, they could buy gifts. And then we would wrap them, and then they would have something to take home. I'm going to cry. They would have something to take home and put under the tree for the parent that was home with them. Because there were always gifts for the parent who was sailing, because mom or dad would take the kids and they'd buy something that they would hang on to and have Christmas in July when the crew came home. But there was nothing under the tree for the parent that was doing the parenting at home with the kids, for a lot of the parents. And so we did that. And then, lo and behold, a couple of the kids asked me to leave the market and go have coffee with their mom, because they walked through the market with tickets and they bought me gifts. Sorry. So that I would have something under my tree, because I was the only person in my house. We were living in Halifax, and all of my family was in Ontario, and all of Rob's family was in Ontario, and I was alone for Christmas. And I had my congregation, and I had all my Christmas Eve services and everything. But the reality is that my Christmas tree was filled with gifts for Rob that I had wrapped and was waiting for him. I just tucked under a table until July. But they were there, and the gifts that I was sending to my family were there. But there were Other than I think my mom and dad sent me something I could unwrap. There were no gifts for me under the table, under the tree. And then the kids gave me these gifts that I could unwrap on Christmas morning. And that was a really powerful thing for me. It reminded me that we are never alone, even when it feels like we are. There are people who love us, who care for us. Sometimes it's hard to find them. I'm also aware, and keenly aware, of how many people are finding this post-COVID, I don't think we're post-COVID, but post-COVID time, when we can't get close to families, or we live far away, or during COVID things shifted, whether it was people died or moved or relationships changed, and we aren't as close as we once were or as close as we would like to be, and that we carry with us memories and we carry with us experiences that are hard to reconcile with the joy and the glory and the wonder of things like the little drummer boy and O Little Town of Bethlehem and What Child Is This that we sing on Christmas. It's important that we recognize that Christmas maybe doesn't suck, but Christmas can be hard. And on this longest night, on this day when we recognize that sunlight is so short, but we also have hope, because tomorrow the day will be longer, if only just for a minute or two. The day will be longer until it grows and grows and grows, until the sun shines and the green grass blooms and we can hear the birds of spring again, and we can recognize that hope and joy and peace are all around us. On this day, we have permission to feel blue at Christmas. We have permission to recognize that while we hope and we rejoice and we celebrate on Saturday and Sunday with Christmas and family and friends, that sometimes it's important to just take a moment to just be and recognize that not always is Christmas all that it's cracked up to be. Sometimes things happen that make it difficult for us. That doesn't mean it always will be, but it means we need to recognize that in this moment, it's okay to hurt. It's okay to be blue. It's okay to worry about your job or your kids or your spouse. It's okay to think about and remember those we remember but see no longer. I encourage you to take some time today to be blue if you need to recognize this as the longest night, to allow yourself to enter into a time of what happens when Christmas isn't as perfect as it's supposed to be. And then come out of that if you can, and reach forward to Christmas Day, when even if you're by yourself, I invite you to go for a walk, to look around you and see the sun come up, see the beautiful moon in the sky and the stars, and think about what it means to you that we have the society we live in, even if it's flawed, which we know it is, but we have a world that we can live in, that we can make choices for ourselves. We can celebrate who we are called to be. And if indeed we are Christians, we can celebrate that Jesus was born like us, to become one like us, that we would know we were not alone. On this longest night, on this coming Christmas, you are not alone. You aren't. I pray that you will understand that and experience that in your heart. Have a gentle day and a holy night. And I will see you again tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachael. God bless you.